So this is my not so minimalistic travel tech carry to be able to edit on the road. Everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Robin Ferrand. I'm a filmmaker and photographer living on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, and I'm currently in my home country in the French Alps to visit friends and family. And despite the fact that I'm technically on vacations, as an independent filmmaker and photographer, well, I still need to be able to edit, whether it's travel video, commercial projects. I have a backlog of editing to do. So in this video, I want to talk about everything that I bring with me to get the job done while on the road, as well as how I import, ingest, backup my photos and videos. But before we get started, I do want to mention a few things. First of all, I do live in a walking valley. This means that down there are cows, up there are sheep. There's also some people over there that are having some sort of a party. So if you hear cows, sheep, or a bit of music, that's why, and I do apologize in advance. However, with that mic, I should be able to get most of that background noise gone and hopefully don't get struck by YouTube for the music playing at the moment. This video will be divided in 4 parts. First, I'm going to show you everything that I bring with me. Then I'll talk about how I import and ingest photos, then video. And finally, I want to talk about the iPad, because while it is part of my travel workflow, it has a weird place in it. So we'll just keep that for the end. The backbone of my tech travel workflow is my MacBook Pro. I got this one in 2021. This is the 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. Not fully maxed out. I think I got halfway with the 32 gigabytes of RAM, something like this, and 1 terabyte. Now, if you were to buy a MacBook Pro today, if you could, I would strongly advise to get a 2 terabyte version minimum. Why? Well, I didn't have money to get the 2 terabyte version at the time. I really thought about it and I was like, oh, it's just too much. And so I went with the 1 terabyte thinking that I would just buy external SSD and hard drive. But the thing is that in 2025, if you plan to be able to, ingest photos on the road, and sometimes you just don't want to every time has to plug an SSD. Not for video. For video, you always have to plug an SSD. But for photo, you would at least expect to be able to just back up directly the images onto your laptop. And so I found, especially lately, that halfway through an import, my laptop would freeze because I forgot that I had no more room left on my Mac. And so I had to hard press turn off the Mac because the SSD was filled up. It started to act weird, and I had to turn off, empty some part of the SSD, and re-import later. It was a big hassle. So if you can, as kind of advice to get a larger SSD. Again, it all depends on your workflow. Next, we have the iPad. This is the 11-inch M1 iPad with the Magic Keyboard that is very dirty because I chose it in white, the Apple Pencil. Great iPad, still very fast, but I'm going to keep that for the end of the video, like I said, because this iPad has a weird place in my workflow. Before I open my tech pad that has almost everything I need, there are a few items that don't fit in there, starting with these 2 LaCie hard drive. Now, I do not edit on those. I use those solely for backup of my SSD. And if I had all of the money in the world, I would, of course, just buy SSD to edit from and SSD to backup the first SSD. But it's just insane prices these days. So I still use those to back up my SSDs. I think this is a 4 terabyte, this is a 2 terabyte. Why? Well, they're affordable. It's hard drive. I think for a 4 terabyte these days, I think it costs you around 180, but I could be wrong. And the cons are, well, they're heavy. And so when you have 4 of those, because I have 1 for each SSD of my workflow SSD, so I would only advise these if you are intending to use them for backup. Otherwise, do not edit on those. You're going to pull your hair because it's way too slow for today's standards. Next, I have this charging brick. I just got that from my business partner. He got one of those and he advised me to use this. Thing is, I'm not going to talk too much about this because I'm still testing it. And just last week, I found out that if I have too many devices plugged, it won't charge the big 16-inch. So we'll leave that on the side for now, and I'll still need to do further testing with it. Next, we have the tech pouch. So this is the Peak Design one. I just got it. And the reason why I didn't get it in the past is that I always found it too bulky for my backpack. And it's very heavy as well. Once you put this in the top of my backpack, it's basically full. The good thing about it, though, is that you can carry a lot of things inside. So let's just open it up. It's not the most organized right now because before my trip, I just shoved everything in there. But first off, I have the charging brick for the MacBook Pro. I almost didn't bring this one because I had this. And the last minute I was like, well, if this fails, I cannot charge my Mac. So grab this as a backup, and I'm very happy I did. Then we have random charging cables, AirPods, good for like everyday stuff, not so good for editing, and I'll mention that later on. So this means that I also carry a pair of like those wired headphones, great for monitoring on the camera and also for editing. Next, what do I have in there? I have in the main thing here, I have something so I can clean my MacBook. SSDs. Okay, so SSD, I have a few from different brands. I mean, for 2 brands technically. I got some Samsung and I got some SanDisk. So those are like between 2 terabytes and 4 terabytes. And those are the drive I work on while I'm on the road. If I'm at home, I have a RAID system. And I love those because they're so small and they're so fast. Now, why do I have 2 brands? Because I got them when one brand was on sale and not the other one. That's the only reason. Now, I have more of the SanDisk one, and lately, these past 2 years or something, there was some issue with the SanDisk ones. They would just fail on a lot of people. So I just can't recommend those just yet. I think they fixed it, but you never know. If I find one on sale, I will still buy it for my own use, but I just can't recommend them anymore. So instead, I would recommend the Samsung one. Like this is a T7, T5 and T7. Now they have the T9, which is even faster, and those go between 1 terabyte and 4 terabyte, and I think they just introduced an 8 terabyte, which is crazy expensive. Pros of those: very fast, very small. Cons: still expensive, and if you can only afford let's say 1 or 2 terabyte, well, it might be a bit short for larger project, especially if you're shooting 4Ks, commercial project, larger things. I also of course have the cable, so those are a bit messy. This is the orange one, standard, coming with the lassie, standard USB-C, and then I got 2 Thunderbolt 4. Why? Well, first of all, I found that those work better with Thunderbolt cable despite the fact that they're USB-C, and second of all, with the new iPhones, those are much better, but they're also more expensive. So I got 2 of those, one's Thunderbolt 3, one's Thunderbolt 4. I believe the brand is Ingest. Got them for a couple of years, very good. Next, I have my card reader. This is a ProGrade CF Express Type B for the R5C, R5, and of course other camera. It also comes with an SD cards reader. Pros of these card readers: it's very affordable, especially compared to other Type B card reader like the SanDisk one. It's very compact. Cons: first of all, there is a magnet in the back of it, and you might think, well, a magnet is great because I can just stick it everywhere I want where there's like a magnet, like the back of your laptop. They give you a small plate, so you can just stick it on the back of your laptop if you're one of those guys, sure. But a magnet will make a hard drive fail, might. So I've seen a lot of horror stories where people have these 2 packed up in the same bag, and then when they try to turn on the drive, well, the magnet just kind of like mess up with the internals of an hard drive. So that's why I never pack these 2 together, and just be very careful if you get one of those. What else do we have in here? Yeah, a few more cables. I'm not going to talk all of those. This is just like extra cables. Then I have this dongle, yes, because the years of the dongles are not over just yet. So this is made by Ingest, and I do not use this for my Mac, although I could. This is for my iPad workflow, because with 1 cables I can plug in an HDMI, a USB-C, a PD for powers, SD card, some USB-A, even Ethernet, which I've never used, but it's there if you want it. And then that's basically it. I mean, it's very empty and light, which is great. I would love if it was just like that all the time. Oh yeah, I do have my beloved iPod Classic in there. It's not part of the workflow. I'm just traveling, so I love to have one of those, especially in the plane, or just when you want to listen to music and not be like kind of like bothered by notifications, Instagram and all of that. Old school, love it. A quick break to thank Clean My Mac for sponsoring this video. Now, I've been using their software for over a decade now across all of my Mac to keep them up and running. Like I mentioned earlier, my MacBook Pro only has 1 terabyte of internal SSD, and so between RAW files, Lightroom caches, some video files, random documents, I am sometimes left with less than 20 gigs of space, which can really slow down my Mac. Clean My Mac has several tools to solve just that, such as the Space Lens tools, which shows you precisely what kind of files are filling up your Mac, and you can then delete them directly from the app. But the best features of Clean My Mac is Smart Clears. It goes fully automated, cleans the junk, clears the caches, checks for the malwares, and also runs maintenance scripts. And the best part is you can still pick and choose which tools you want to use, so it's fully customizable. Cloud Cleanup is the latest feature available with Clean My Mac, and you can now connect your cloud storage such as the iCloud, Google Drive, OneDrive to easily see what is filling up your different cloud storage. So Clean My Mac is another one of those essential tools of my workflow, whether I'm on the road like now or at home. You can get 10% off your subscriptions by using my discount code RobinFernStudio10. Link is in the bio. Thank you, Clean My Mac, and back to the video. Next, let's talk about how I ingest and backup photos while on the road. So I have my little case here for my memory cards. I like to keep my media separated. So for the photos, I usually only use the SD cards, and when it comes to video, I will use the CF Express Type B. Why? Well, most of the codecs I use on the R5C needs to have a CF Express Type B, and so when I got the R5C, I kind of got in the habit of kind of dividing both of my media. You don't have to do this, it's for my internal sanity, I guess. The reason why is that if I know that day I only shot photos, well, I only need to grab one card, and then so I don't have to kind of like dive into the different menus of the different cards, because if I use the XF AVC, it's in a different folder than it is inside the RAW for those. So it's just much easier for me to know, oh, I only shot photos today, well, it's the SD card. I only shot video, only this card. And then if I plug this one, I know in which folder it is, and in this one, I know it's in different folders. It's just faster, and you don't have to do this. So let's back up this card now, turn this on. And when it comes to backing up photos, I've already made a videos a couple of years ago actually of how I ingest my RAW file from my R5C, R6 and why not. And for the longest time I used the iPad. Why? Because I wanted to have the backup of all of my RAWs on the Adobe Cloud. Now most of people don't have this workflow, but if you do have only the Adobe Photographer plan, it does come with 1 terabyte or even 2 terabytes of cloud, and if you have this, then you can use that workflow or get some portion of it. But since 2 years ago, I had to move things around because I found that the backing up the RAW files only with my iPad had some limitations. So these days I use Lightroom, not Lightroom Desktop. Why? Well, first of all, if I back up directly the RAWs to Lightroom Classic and I want to also add them to my cloud, I can't. You still can like drop them onto your cloud, but what it does is it actually just upload a smart preview, not the full RAW. And I do want to have my RAWs on the cloud because let's say someone steals my backpack, I still have my RAWs saved up on the cloud. So this is the main reason why I chose to kind of have this Adobe Cloud as the backbone of my ingest and backup and editing photo workflow. Now the difference is that I also set up my Lightroom Classic to talk with the cloud, meaning that I'll use Lightroom to import photos, it will upload them to the cloud, at the same time I will open Lightroom Classic and do nothing, and automatically my Lightroom Classic will download those same RAW, put them in the dedicated folders on my SSD, and so it's kind of like this automated workflow, and I can still kind of like cull through my photos on the iPad or Lightroom, and all of the changes I'll do are still sync with my Lightroom Classic because I know that it's in Lightroom Classic it will do my final edits, all of the catalog, putting the correct keywords, renaming the files, all of that is done in Lightroom Classic. Let's talk about the pros and the cons of that Adobe Cloud workflow I'm currently using. Pros, I love the idea of knowing that my RAWs are backed up somewhere, meaning that if I lose all of this, or if one of my drive breaks or anything, touching wood, I know that all my RAWs are backed up somewhere. The second thing is that I love the ability to know that all of my RAWs are accessible from different devices. So if I want to edit RAWs on the Lightroom Classic, I can. If I, for some reason, want to edit them on Lightroom Desktop, I can as well. But the most part, I love having access to those RAWs on the iPad. So I can do some light cullings, I can do some light editings, I can even quickly edit a photos on my iPhone if I want to share it to social media right away, which I never do, but if I want, I can. But of course, this workflow isn't perfect, so let's talk about the cons. The number one is it's cloud-based, meaning that if, like me, you're in the middle of the mountains and your Wi-Fi connection isn't the strongest, it might take a while to upload those RAW files, especially if you have a larger camera like a Sony A7R5 or the R5C with those like 45 megapixels images. I think a single RAW for my camera is around 80 megabytes. So if you shot like 200, 300, 1000 on one day, well, it might take a while to upload. And so if you're using Wi-Fi into a hotel that's not good of that, it can be an issue. Next, let's talk about how I ingest and backup video files while on the road, and kind of like similar, it all starts with a memory card that you need to plug inside your laptop. So let's do this. And then on the other side here, I have my SSD on which I'm going to back up that footage. And so we'll open it Finder here, and so usually I have two windows open like this. On the left I have the memory card, and on the right I have the SSD. And so I did a few things to speed up that workflow. And so I have the folder here, and I already made some kind of like templates folders. So if I go inside that Z content template here, you can see that it already have like the different sections I need. This is going to be the audio from the mics, like the DJI or something, the time lapse, and then the videos with the different cameras. And so having those folders already pre-made kind of like saves you tons of times when you do it a lot. I'm going to go to my memory card here, go select the video files, and then I'll just drag them to videos. Cam A is going to be the R5C, and that's it. The files are now transferred, so the next thing I'll do is go back to the memory cards, and I'm gonna grab all of those video files, and I'm going to add a little green tag to them. Why? So if I put that card back into the camera and I don't want to kind of format it just yet because there's still some room, the next time I plug the cards, I already know that all of the files with the green tags have been backed up. The next step is to rename my video files. Now, most people don't do this, but it's actually quite useful, especially when you have more complicated workflow or if you work with other editors. And so I work a lot with my business partner, of course, and so now we have the same naming convention for video files. And to do that, we use a software like Better Finder Rename, that's the one we're using. And so we drag those video files in here. Then we choose the small presets, and we have the same presets, so then I'm going to rename it. If it's cam A, cam B, cam C, and then the 1, 2, and corresponds to the reels or to the different cards. That way it's much easier to know which camera it is, who shot it with the initial, and just keep everything kind of like tight and clean. The next step is to back up that SSD, and for that I'm using one of those heavy but trustworthy Lassie drive. And so I'm going to plug it in, and as soon as I plug it in, something is going to happen. It's going to automatically back up that full drive onto this hard drive. Because I have one of those cloning software, I'm using a carbon copy cloner, and I'm going to plug it in, wait a few seconds for the drive to boot. As you can see, it's backing up the entire SSD onto this drive. Now, of course, this hard drive has the same capacity as this SSD, so this is a 4 terabyte and this is a 4 terabyte. And so I don't have to do anything. I can just walk away, go make a coffee or tea or whatever I want, and the backup is being automatically done. Now, depending on how large your project is, it might take a couple of minutes, it might take a couple of hours, because those are still hard drive. As you can see, my MacBook Pro is the backbone of my workflow, but if we put this aside for a second and concentrate on this, which is my iPad. Now, this is interesting because the iPad has a place in that workflow, but not the one I expected when I bought this at the end of 2022, because what I was looking for was a link between my heavy MacBook Pro. It's a great machine, it's still a laptop and all of that, but it's big, it's 16-inch, it's beefy, and I was like, I don't always want to carry this. So what if the iPad could be the answer to this? Because after all, it's called the iPad Pro, so you should be able to use it in a professional workflow, or so I thought. And so, yeah, I got this in the end of 2022. I was able to implement it inside my workflow, like I mentioned, for the photo part, and it works great for the most part, but I had some hiccups with it, especially with the large files of the R5C and working with the Type B CF Express Type B, trying to plug this inside the iPad. It works, but sometimes Lightroom would just like fail the imports. I would have to start over. Some raw would be imported into the cloud, but some would be missing, and so I would end up having to delete the images from the cloud and start over. When you start doing that 1, 2, 3, 4 times, you're like, okay, this is not a fully working workflow. So that's just for the photo parts. Now, if I'm in a pinch, I can use the iPad to import raw files, but honestly, I really don't like it. I hope they fix it. Maybe they fixed it in the past months, but the last time I used it, it was such a mess that I was just done with it. When it comes to video, that also is interesting, because last year I got like Final Cut for iPad. I got a 1-year subscriptions. I was hoping to use it for Instagram Reels. I knew I wouldn't be able to use the strong video file from the R5C. They're too big, they're too bulky. It's not just, even the fact that I can plug an SSD works, but the battery was just awful. It was not a suitable workflow. So I thought, okay, well, I'm only going to use it for Instagram Reels shot with my iPhone, and even that is just wasn't good. The Final Cut versions on iPad is just so simple. It's basically iMovie for iPad, but just the icon change and it says Final Cut, and they charge you for it. That's basically what it is. So I dropped that as well. I do have DaVinci Resolve installed on my iPad, but I've never used it. I still have to do it. So that's where the iPad stands in that workflow. I had really some hope for it. Now I do have iOS 26 on it, or iPad OS 26 on it, with the new finders, the new tools. I played a little bit with it, but the main thing that when you plug an SSD, you still cannot eject the SSD. I don't know if is the drive still running. I remember one time I plugged one of those drive onto my iPad. I couldn't eject it, so I just turned off the app, unplugged it, and that one of those drives failed. So not a professional workflow once again. Despite the fact that I have an iPad Pro, at the end of the day, it's still mainly used for YouTube, and I do some writing with the keyboard. That's basically it. So for example, if one of you guys or a friend or family asks me, hey, I have the budget for the iPad and I'm thinking of getting the iPad, the pencil, the Magic Keyboards, and altogether it's basically the price of a MacBook Air, what should I get? Well, if you're planning to do mostly video and photo editing, just go with the MacBook Air. I mean, maybe I'm getting old and I'm too used to the Mac, but these past 3 years trying to use the iPad just hasn't worked for me. And so I think for professional video editors and photographers, the Mac is still the way to go. The iPad is a very good companion. It can do a lot, but at the end of the day, it is still just a companion to a Mac. And so I know there are some people are solely using the iPad, and great. I'm just not one of those guys. That's my workflow while on the road. As you could see, this is maybe not the most updated workflow. I'm still using some of the legacy tech, I guess. But the most important part is that with this, I am still able to do all of my work while on the road, and that's what matters. So hopefully you were able to pick up some insights and some tips on what to get and what not to get. I'm also very curious to see what kind of tools you're using for your own workflow. So make sure to drop that in the comment section and I'll take a look and I'll make sure to answer. That's for me, guys. Thank you for watching. And if you got something out of this video, please consider liking and subscribing so I can do more in the futures, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.